My name is Caitlin Best. I am the Legislative Director for the Truman Student Government, and the purpose of this forum tonight is really to, first of all, be the first stage in a series of things that student government is hosting to kind of gather the student opinion on this conceal and carry issue that's going through the Missouri legislature right now that I'm sure some of you at least have an idea about. And secondly, we just want to use this forum tonight as understanding what the situation is right now, and if this legislation passes, how that situation was changed. That's why I've asked Sara Holzmeier, the director of TPS, to talk to us tonight about that more specialized knowledge. So I guess I will just go ahead and tell you guys, if in case you don't know a little bit more about the legislation. We are talking about Senate Bill 589 and Senate Bill 731, filed by Dixon and Senator Munslinger, respectively. And you guys may know that Senator Munslinger is our senator from Adair County. And then both of these bills have sister bills in the House of Representatives, HB 1899 and HB 1910, in case you were wondering. So, basically, both versions of this legislation says the same thing, but I'll go ahead and kind of tell you what that is. For Senate Bill 589 and HB 1899, they have identical language, and all it does is currently in Missouri statute, you've got a list of all of the institutions, areas, whatever you want to call it, that you cannot carry a gun on, even if you have a conceal and carry permit. It just strikes institutions of higher education from that list. So that's all it does. Then on the other hand, you have Senate Bill 731 and House Bill 1910, which does the exact same thing as the other two, but it also has this little caveat saying you can get an exception to this repealing of this ban if you apply for an exemption through the Department of Public Safety of Missouri. And the way you get that exemption is if you install like metal detectors on every building on campus, and you have like security checks for people coming in and out. So essentially it does the same thing as Senate Bill 589 and HB 1899, because that would cost millions of dollars to implement, obviously, and it would just be unfeasible practically also. So that is the legislation that we're kind of looking at. Yes, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Holzmeier. Afterwards, we will have an opportunity for all of you guys to ask your questions, or, well, we'll try to keep it to questions for now. There's obviously a large group of you here, so try to limit the length of your question to maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and we'll try to answer to the best of our abilities. So I'll just go ahead and let you talk about what the current situation with conceal and carry is on campus.
Okay, thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sara Holzmeier, your Director of Public Safety for Truman State University. I want to start by saying that I don't represent the way the board of governors or way the president or the university feel about this matter. I stand up here as a law enforcement officer that's been in law enforcement for the last 20 years and have significant experience in this area. The board of governors and Truman State University as a whole, I don't think they've actually weighed in on this. So I just want you to know the way I feel and what I say tonight has nothing to do with the way the university feels. Currently, obviously, concealed carry and weapons allowed on Truman campus is illegal, not allowed. We do have sharpshooters on campus. We do have a significant amount of students that hunt on campus and think they don't hunt on campus. If you don't know, a couple of the questions that they posed to me beforehand is, you know, if you have guns and you like to hunt, and what do you do with those? We have a safe over at Truman State DPS. It's free of charge. You come in, you check your weapon in. You don't bring your weapon onto campus whenever you want it. We're open 24 hours a day. You come in and call our central dispatch and have an officer come over and meet you there, and you can come and get your guns, either get them to go hunt or you know, shoot, and then check them back in when you want to. So we do provide that for students that live on campus. Now, for students that live off campus, they are responsible for storing and caring for their own weapons. But we do it for the Sharpshooters Club and for any student that lives on campus, since it's not allowed. One of the things they asked me about is if you were to have a concealed carry weapon permit and you were caught with a gun on campus. I talked to Student Affairs today. Obviously, if you're a student at Truman State University, you represent the university, you're going to be in trouble with civil penalties, and then you're also going to be in trouble with the university. They told me they can go anywhere depending on the circumstance and what happened, and whether the gun was used or not used. It could go anywhere from a verbal warning to expulsion, and that's on a case-by-case basis. As far as the law is concerned, if you have a concealed and carry permit and you are caught with a gun on campus, it's not illegal. It's a civil penalty. The concealed carry weapons permit says that the first time that we catch you, if we were to catch you with concealed carry weapon and have the weapon on a school campus, you get a fine of $100. And we didn't have the option to actually kick you off campus and not allow you back. So which in turn could be a problem if you are a student. If you're a non-student, it depends. Second time, it's a $200 fine, and you can have your concealed carry weapon permit suspended. Third time, it is a $500 fine, and they will revoke your concealed carry weapon permit. So obviously, if you don't have concealed carry weapon permit and you're on campus, it's illegal. And you are, it's a felony to have a weapon and not have a concealed carry permit. So, and have it on campus. So, not a good idea. Obviously, being a law enforcement officer, I'm very comfortable with guns. Being a law enforcement officer, I mean, when I saw this bill, and my officers and I have talked about it, and one thing that I do know is it's not going to change the way my officers or we deal with things on campus. In the Law Enforcement Academy, we're all taught to assume that everybody's armed. And that's the way we should treat everybody. So it's not going to change the way we approach different situations. It's not going to change the way we treat people. It's not going to change anything like that. However, one thing that, I mean, I like the fact that right now, schools are kind of what they call soft targets, which means that everybody knows, it's common knowledge that nobody has a weapon on campus but university police. So they know when they come in here, they're not going to be anything but physical resistance because you guys can't have them. Okay? And that means that we're easy targets for people that want to come in and shoot up things. So I see this bill being a good thing in that there wouldn't be the assumption that you'll never know who's armed or not armed. That there'll be protection. We won't be seen as a soft, easy target anymore. The perception will change about schools and things like that. I see that most of the time, and if you look at the statistics, the people that take the time to get their concealed carry permits are responsible. They're the ones that actually are involved with guns, normally have been around guns all their life, they're very comfortable with them. It's not the people that are uncomfortable that usually go to get them. And so, I mean, it's been proven that when there have been shootings, typically it's not the concealed carry permit people. It's going to be the other people that don't have them and haven't taken the time to take the class. A couple things that concern me in Missouri. Our state is significantly lower in the age in which you can get a concealed carry permit. The age here in Missouri to get a concealed carry is 19 years of age, which means that 3/4 or probably 80–90% of the population here at Truman would be eligible if you pass the background checks and things like that. And 18 if you're in the military. So if you were in ROTC or things like that, at 18 you're able to take a concealed carry class and get a permit to carry concealed weapons. It concerns me that, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're great, and I think all of you are great. I was a college student too once, but a lot of you are out for the first time. You're experiencing life and freedoms that your parents never allowed you to have. I know that guns don't kill people, that people kill people, okay? But my student population tends to make a lot of bad choices, a lot of bad decisions. A lot of times their experimentation with alcohol, with drugs, with misuse of prescription drugs, and that the availability of a firearm to be much more readily on campus scares me for self-harm and also for harm to others in crisis situations. Here in Kirksville, I get 700 hours of training with extensive training on firearms. I've been trained on how to strip it down, how to, if one arm gets inoperable, how do I shoot with this arm, how do I shoot with the other arm. Extensive training on justification, on whether I shoot, whether I don't shoot, when is it okay to pull out my weapon, when is it not okay. Concealed weapon carry classes in Missouri are only 8 hours, and only 4 hours of that are in a classroom where you're learning about the nomenclature of a gun. There is no stipulation that they have to go over justification, when you should pull out your firearm, when you should not. There's no stipulations in Missouri about when you should shoot, when you should don't shoot. It really scares me that there's nothing that tells you how to identify to protect themselves. So that's kind of that, and the fact that my officers walk in and we don't know who the bad guy and who the good guy is. And I think there should be training on how to identify yourself, and it's an awesome power. And sometimes when people are in the academy, it's a very scary power to them to feel when they give us a gun and a badge that we have the legal authority to take a human life. And when you go through that concealed carry class, I think it should be stressed that you're now given that opportunity. And I think everybody, a lot of times people get into it for hunting and for other purposes and things like that. But when you're concealed carry, you're protecting yourself and others around you. And you have a very huge responsibility on your shoulders with that. I don't know. So I see both sides. Kind of scares me that you guys are kind of the elite. You're very smart. And Truman is not an easy college. There's a lot of high pressures here. And you're trying to fit in with peer pressures, you're trying to make a grade. Some of you guys have never gotten a B in your life, and I've seen kids fall apart at a B, and I gotta go home, my life's over, I've never had a B before. And then you're out on your own, and you're experimenting with freedoms and things like that. The readily accessibility of a gun, sometimes, mental health of some of the students on campus, not because you're sick and mental and deranged, kind of like what you think, it's just because of the stress and the pressures that go on your life when you're 18, 19, 20 years old and out on your own for the first time. And let's face it, drugs, alcohol, prescription drugs, they impair your judgment. And with firearms being more readily available to you and easily accessible to some people, even if if somebody's under stress, pressure, and feeling like they want to end their life, they may not do it, but maybe they know their roommate has a gun and he keeps it in, his trunk at the bottom of his bed. Somebody who may not have done it may do it. It's just another factor to add in there. Another thing that's not there, should not be there right now. I'm not saying that there aren't guns on campus, because I'm sure there's a lot of things I don't know about that go on campus. Those are some of my concerns. The fact that, I have extensive training. Concealed carry people get 8 hours. What are some of your questions? And if I don't know something, I will tell you. I am not a huge expert in this field.
I'm going to ask, what has been the general response of law enforcement or response personnel throughout the state, specifically in hearings at the Senate or the House? Has there been a response from law enforcement community in support or not in support of this measure?
I don't know. I would have to look that up. I know, and I think a lot of law enforcement that I've talked to, just preparing to talk to you guys today, here and around the Kirksville area, kind of feel the way I do. I mean, there's a mixed feeling. I mean, we're all for it. However, we think there should be a little bit more to the concealed carry to be able to get it, a little more stipulations to make sure that you don't pull out a gun at the wrong time and I don't shoot you thinking you're a bad guy. That scares me to death. That's something I'd have a hard time living with. And that's something I don't want to happen here on campus. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if this legislation were to pass, currently people have to, check in their firearms into the safe if they live on campus.
Mm-hmm.
So would they not have, if you had a conceal and carry permit and all you had was, like a handgun, those people probably wouldn't have to do that anymore because the ban is lifted. But what about the people who have like a hunting rifle? Like, would they still be under obligation to check those weapons into?
They would be under obligation to check the weapon in. The way I read the bill is that basically if this passes and we as a university say, no, we don't want this to happen, you can't carry your concealed carry, we have to post metal detectors and armed guards at every door to every building on campus. It's a very pricey alternative and something that no university is going to be able to afford. So basically they're saying you're going to have to do it if it passes. So I mean, if you had a concealed carry weapon, I don't know. I mean, the university would probably have to make some form of you would have to probably let us know that you're a concealed carry weapon permit holder. And I mean, there's no stipulations. I don't know, depending on what the bill, it's pretty generalized right now. So, I mean, I think if you were a responsible gun owner, I'd like to see that you had a locked safe or something to put it in at night when you go to bed and things like that. However, that's not in the bill. There's nothing in the bill. So, and I'm not sure how the university would respond to that. It would be a pretty difficult situation.
Yeah.
Yes?
Do you happen to know the difference in suicide rates for campuses that do have concealed and carry allowed on campus versus those who have banned?
I don't. The one thing that I see in other states that are looking at this bill is that a lot of their concealed carry weapon permits, you can get them either, like Kansas is 21, and there's a few other states that's 23 to get your concealed carry permit, which basically is saying 95% of, or at least 50% of your student population is going to be able to have one. And so it's, to me, it's a concern, but it's not as a concern. I mean, it's kind of like we make you be 21 to drink. It's a responsibility, and you have choices. I mean, the older you are, the more reasoning and thought process you're going to go through, I guess, and hopefully make better choices and better decisions, more life experiences you've had. So I don't know. I do know that like in Kansas it's 21. So I mean it significantly reduces and it allows, I mean at 23 it would pretty much say that our faculty and staff and graduate students could have guns and nobody else would have them. And at that age people make the choice and have more life experiences and I know, I mean I was a school resource officer in the Kirksville 3 schools for 10 years. And granted, you guys are a little bit older than that, but kids your age, until you're about 23, 24, you think about what's happening right at this moment, today, you think about maybe tomorrow, but you don't think about 10 days down the road, 20 days down the road, or 40 days down the road, or 2 years down the road, and how the choices in your actions right now can affect you for the rest of your life. So I think the older you are, the more responsible you get. too, and the more forward thinking you get instead of in the heat of the moment, the crisis is right here and now. That's my personal feelings. Yes?
Do you know any statistics about how concealed carry influences violent crime in that area?
Not necessarily. I don't. I do know that, I mean, most of the time when there's a shooting, it's not by a concealed carry weapons permit owner. I mean, the statistics that I look at say that it's more the people that shouldn't have the weapons or aren't able to legally to have the weapons that are doing the wrong things. But I don't have like statistics or percentages for you.
But pertaining to how it, do the crime rates go up or down? Do you have any information on that?
I don't.
Or,
Sorry. Yes.
Does the bill talk at all about like the right place to carry the weapon on your body and the safest place or whatever? And what's your opinion on that? Like, if you were like not a cop and like just like a civilian, where would you? Like, is there a
I mean, if
safer
you're going to
place?
carry concealed, I'd want it readily accessible and readily available to be able to use to save your life or someone else's. So, I mean, if you're going to conceal, I would want it in and around my waist or in and around somewhere that's readily accessible to me to save my life or somebody else's. But concealed enough where you're not making a spectacle of yourself, where people are concerned and looking at you with weird looks and backing away from you or freaking out. Yes.
I was just, this is sort of a question, but if the bill would pass, would DPS consider a way of providing more information or training to people who ask for it? You know,
Like as far as,
or just you were mentioning how, as a law enforcement officer, you would be concerned about concealed carriers without a particularly large amount of training or whatever. Would DPS consider a way of providing them with more?
sure. I mean, I'd be all about trying to help people make good, informed decisions, justification, anything like that to help out. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
If this passes, do you guys have any kind of policy in case like a firearm is stolen from the dorm room? Because I know in the dorms a lot of doors are just kind of left open all the time, and I know not everyone might secure the firearm.
I mean, we would have to have a policy on it. Things would significantly change around as far as policies and rules and as far as residence halls and things like that. I know I talked to a couple people beforehand that said, I'd like to see exceptions, not to have them in residence halls, and things like that. I guess the bill, the way I've read it, is pretty generic and just basically says you're going to allow this, or you're going to spend millions and millions of dollars putting armed guards and stuff at entrances, so they kind of force you to show on. Yes, back in the back.
If the bill were to pass and the concealed carry would obviously go into effect on this campus, would you see DPS's logistical costs? Like for, you just named and like something you don't necessarily have like a protocol already envisioned for?
No, I don't think logistical costs, honestly, it really would not affect the way we do business. I would like to think that it wouldn't increase my calls on campus and our calls for service and things like that. However, realistically, I think we just have to wait and see and find out. It may cause, if concerns go up, and people continue to call and my officers are bombarded with people scared that there's a gun around every corner, it may change and think a lot of things around my department. The only thing logistically I see right now, it would probably be me as the director assisting residence halls and other people with making policies and procedures around campus about how we deal with things and what we're doing from my law enforcement perspective. Yeah.
Is the bill scheduled to go into effect immediately on passing, or is there going to be like a waiting period of 6 months to a year so that you have time to prepare a policy?
I don't know. Do you know?
I remember it saying that. I can't remember exactly, but I do know that typically these bills always have a later effectiveness date. So I would...
Typically in Missouri, what happens is they pass them in August and they go in effect January 1 of the next year. That's kind of the pattern you see. Now, I don't know about the specific bill, but usually they give you a 3 or 4 month, jump start. Yes?
I actually have the bill pulled up here. It would go into effect August 28th, 2016.
So it would go into effect right away?
It would go into effect in next fall.
Yes?
When is the bill being voted upon?
Oh, yeah, that is another good question. I probably should have prefaced with that. The bills they started moving pretty fast when session first started, Missouri legislative session. They've kind of stalled in committee. Both of the Senate bills had public hearings about 2 weeks ago, and they haven't had anything else acted upon them since then. And then the House bills have only been referred to committee. They have not had any hearings yet. So that's kind of where we are with that.
Yes?
Do you happen to know the difference between active shooter training and concealed carry training?
Concealed carry training would probably be, I know I'm good friends with an officer that actually does concealed carry up in Schuyler County. Active shooter training is training that we as law enforcement have, and then also training you as the public when somebody's actively shooting. And I guess I don't know how to, it used to be before Columbine that we would surround an area that somebody was actively shooting in, form a perimeter and wait for the SWAT team to come in and take the person down. Since Columbine, we know that we can't sit back and wait. So law enforcement is trained to go in. I just trained my officers in January while you guys were out on Christmas break to go in solo engagement, to engage the shooter and take out the threat. 2, 3, 4 officers, depending on whether we have backup from the city of Kirksville, we train together to go in and take out the threat. Concealed carry is just basic nomenclature of the gun. They teach basic nomenclature as far as the gun parts, how to put the gun together. They teach you about the different weapons as far as a semi-automatic, 6-shooter. Can't even think standing up here. I call them a real gun. And different things like that. They teach you a little bit about, and it's pretty general as far as when to shoot, how the different places that you can carry it, different things like that, and about the concealed carry law itself, teaching you if you happen to take it onto a school, what can happen to you, and things like that. They spend 4 hours in a classroom. They break for lunch, and then the last 4 hours they have to shoot all 3 guns and qualify. I think it's either 7 or 15 yards. I think it's 7. So not very far away. So that's pretty basic. They're just teaching you to point, shoot, and kind of making people comfortable with the weapon, and that's it.
We got a question in the back.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm not very informed on the concealed and carry laws, but I was wondering if there would be any penalty for people who reveal their weapon and without just cause. Like if we were in class and my classmate just pulled out their gun for no apparent reason, would there be a penalty for that?
You're gonna get sued.
I would definitely, I'm thinking, it depends on if somebody, you're talking about standing up, waving it, doing things, or are you talking about just hey man, I got this?
The professor and just pulled out their weapon, would there be, or just in general, just pulling out their weapon for no reason, would there be a penalty for that?
It all depends on the situation. If they're taking it out to show somebody, if they're not brandishing it, if they're pointing at someone, if they're not doing it in a threatening manner, my guess is that we're probably student code of conduct. The thing is, it's not going to be anything to mess around with, because I'm guessing that if this does pass, student affairs is not going to take lightly to anything. And I would guess that somebody's going to get expelled for taking it out when you don't need it. However, it would be on a case-by-case basis depending on what was going on around, what was said. I'm hoping that if this passes and people take the time to go through the class, that they're going to be responsible enough to know they shouldn't be taken out. How's that? It's a little long, drawn-out thing, but yeah.
My question's for you. For a bill and legislature to go into a hearing, it has to be having some sort of traction. So my question is why are we, you said it went into a hearing 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
2 weeks ago, that's a considerable amount of time. Why is now the first time that we've heard anything about this? I feel like that this greatly affects us as a student body.
Yeah.
And so
Well, this legislation was, I believe these bills were pre-filed all the way back in December. We in student government have kind of been talking about it since the semester started, I think, trying to organize a response so that we could collect student opinion. So I guess the reason that a lot of you might just now be hearing about it is because that's just how long it's taken student government to kind of organize these events that we're having this week. So, yeah, just.
I know you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, my question's for Caitlin as well. Since you have spent a lot of time watching the House activity, what is the projection time do you think it is, based on your knowledge of how the
For when the House bills will move?
to when they'll be voted on? Yeah, based granted there's no set thing, but
Yeah.
when do you think?
I heard a rumor that they might, in the Senate, I don't know about the House. It seems like comparing the activity between the Senate bills and the House bills, if any of these bills get passed, it'll probably be one of the Senate bills. And I heard a rumor that they might be holding executive session on it in committee tomorrow, but that was just a rumor. I don't actually know. It could sit in committee for the rest of legislative session, or like I said, they could vote it out of committee tomorrow. It's hard to predict, for me at least. I guess I'm not very good at that. So.
Good. Kid the Grace question.
Question. Okay, so earlier you were mentioning that shooting incidents typically, they didn't involve people who had a concealed carry permit, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, are we talking about mass shootings? Or are we talking about individual homicides lumped into that, or accidental shootings, like a gun accident just goes off?
Honestly, I was looking at the statistics and different things for concealed carry when they asked me to do this. I'm not sure exactly what the article was on that I was reading, so I apologize. I'm not sure.
No, you're fine. I was just wondering if in those numbers, if that was being taken into consideration.
I know mass shootings were a part of it,
right?
But local. It was more of a localized gun crime type, city to city type thing. When we're going in as law enforcement, it was I don't remember, I think it was one of the guys from Philadelphia PD was the one that authored the article and talking about, the sheer fact that most of the shootings that we go to as law enforcement don't involve concealed weapons carry people. It's the people that aren't supposed to have it.
I have one question for the members of Student Senate. Do you have any idea of faculty's response here at Truman and/or Board of Governors, President Payno's response, if they've had any at all? My understanding is that faculty are vehemently opposed to this and think that having guns in the classroom or on campus is an affront to them. But if you have any knowledge to responses that
I guess I'll prerequisite this with saying this is just kind of my opinion and what I've gathered from talking to various people. I get the sense that this is not something faculty and administration are very comfortable with. At the Board of Governors meeting this past weekend, Dr. Payno briefly mentioned that this didn't seem like this was not something that seemed to be taken well across the state with higher education in general. I think he even mentioned that even hospitals, a couple of hospitals that are where students are going, to take classes and things, paired with universities, are also kind of coming out against it. Again, these are not quotes. Everyone can look up the Board of Governors meeting minutes on the internet, and I'm not sure if anything else is specified. It was talked about pretty vaguely, but it does not seem like this is something that people are welcoming with open arms by any means. So,
Lyndall, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you mentioned earlier about how you would like to have like a longer training session, and one of the things you mentioned was training on how to identify yourself as a good guy. If this bill passes, would there be a way for the university to make that a requirement? Make extra training a requirement for carrying concealed weapons?
Not in the way that the bill is written right now. It would be the state law as far as concealed carry and the concealed carry weapons permit is right now. So.
Also, have there been any incidents in the previous incidents of students having weapons on campus?
In the past, yes. I think we took an AK-47 out of Missouri Hall one year. Wasn't loaded, mind you, but I mean, it was on campus and it was a gun. Several years ago, don't get me wrong.
Do you think that the passing of this bill is going to make students want to bring their guns onto campus, or do you think the current level would stay about the same? Because just because it passes doesn't mean students all of a sudden want to bring more weapons onto campus. From what you've seen, with previous incidents of students bringing stuff, do you think it's going to increase when it becomes legal?
I mean, I think there's a significant, I mean, we live in Missouri, and one of our major things is hunting, and I mean, whether it be a bow and arrow, whether it be a gun, I mean, we have a significantly high amount of people with firearms in this state. And so, I mean, and I think a lot of you guys are from St. Louis and Kansas City, and I'm a mom. If I could make my son or daughter familiar with a firearm and put them through an 8-hour or 16-hour course and send that to college with them and feel comfortable with my kid having it, I may choose to do that. But I would also know, as a law enforcement officer, my daughter or son would have to be comfortable with that weapon. And they would have to know what kind of a responsibility it was to keep it locked up from it. I mean, it's a responsibility in that you don't want anybody else to get it who doesn't have the training. I don't want to see a bunch of people screwing around when they're intoxicated or high on somebody else's prescription medication, playing with somebody's firearm and somebody gets shot in the head. That's my fears with this. I mean, in the environment we live in with the experimentation and the freedoms you guys are experiencing for the first time. So, I mean, that's some of my fears. I think that there would be a significant amount of people that probably would choose to conceal and carry. That's just my thoughts, in that just because we're in Missouri and a significant people do hunt and significant amount of people do feel comfortable with firearms. Yes?
So earlier you mentioned how universities are soft targets normally.
Mm-hmm.
Other than a bill such as this, with the allowing concealed carry on campus, or the multi-million-dollar security guards and metal detectors, what alternative measures could there possibly be to turn campuses from soft targets to harden them up, so to speak?
I don't know. I mean, I know that I'm trying to make us a harder target by putting out, I don't know if you guys saw my video. I put out an email. There's a video on DPS. It's on active shooters. I'm teaching people the options that they have, educating you guys as the public and non-law enforcement on the options that you have, just not to hide underneath the desk when this stuff happens. I think that helps in making us a harder target. I just sent an officer, he just got back today from Alice School, which is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. So basically the same thing as get out, lock out, take out in my video. And being able to teach large groups of students and staff how to respond in these situations. At this point, that's the best thing that I can do. And make known that we as Truman State University and Kirksville Police Department train together, work together, we have a good relationship, and know that if things happen, that our response is going to be quick, fast, and we're going to get the job done. Yeah.
What about the possibility of training your criminal justice students in firearm safety as a preliminary to the academy, and having them be permitted to carry concealed and they would be known to you?
I don't know. I mean, that's an option. That would have to be something that the Board of Governors and the President support as the university. But I mean, I don't see that as a bad option. So.
Can we go ahead and take these two more questions, and then we're gonna move on to like kind of an opinion gathering stage. So you two, I saw your hands up. Oh, I was pointing to you, Ben.
As it stands now, we've got laws like Stand Your Ground and Protect Your Castle. Would those carry over onto campuses with concealed carry?
I mean, I guess, and I'd have to read that law more as what is the castle doctrine and what they deem as your property in your house. I don't know if that would include your dorm room. That would be definitely something that, if this law passes, we would have to consider and, take into account, because it would be more likely that people may do that.